I think that the heart of it really is to bring it to life. Do you know what? And there could be an invitation here, Ollie, to the listeners. Hey, take a leaf out of our book from this episode. Go and do something spontaneous this weekend or this week or whenever. He would be saying that we were more spontaneous when we were kids, which meant we expressed our feelings more freely. They have to be intentional to be spontaneous, but
For some reason, it's difficult for me to pronounce it in English, spontaneity.
Ironically, I love the word, but because of my dyslexia, I cannot spell it. I can say it beautifully, but I cannot spell the thing. Spontaneity.
What?
Hold on, I'll say it again with surprise. Spontaneity.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to OKEveryday, a podcast about transactional analysis, or TA, and its application. The core belief and basic philosophical position of TA is that I'm okay and you're okay. But we've all experienced times when we felt not okay, when we questioned ourselves, we questioned others in a negative and self-critical kind of way. That limits us from experiencing life to the fullest. That's why myself, Alexi, and Jason, a pro in transactional analysis, will dive into how to make us closer to being and feeling okay every day. Interested? Come join us.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to OKEveryday. Hi, Jason.
Hello, Ollie.
We have quite the topic today, haven't we?
Oh, yes. Big time. Big time. Another one of my favorite words of all time. But, actually, investigating it makes it even better.
Okay. Well, before we tell everyone what it is, today we're going to talk about... That's an attempt of a drum roll.
Well, that was me making the noise. I can see you have a drum, but that was me making the noise. What teamwork! What teamwork!
So and we're talking about
spontaneity.
What?
Hold on, I'll say it again with surprise. Spontaneity.
No, that is amazing.
The word itself is energy, right?
It is. It is. You can't say it with a straight face. Spontaneity. And actually, before the session, I was for some reason it's difficult for me to pronounce it in English. Spontaneity. Oh. It doesn't sound. So I try to say. So how does it sound in Ukrainian? I'm being Ukrainian, and I love the way it sounds in Ukrainian. It's spontaneist. It's very beautiful. It's very melodic.
It is. It's musical for sure. Ironically, I love the word, but because of my dyslexia, I cannot spell it. I can say it beautifully, but I cannot spell the thing. Thank God for spell check.
Well, you know what? We can't spell it. We don't know how to pronounce it, but we live it. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, and today we're going to look at getting more of it into your life, both personally and professionally, right?
Yes, we are. Again, as we do with a lot of things, let's start with what is spontaneity in TA.
Great. Yeah. And again, for those people who've been listening to the previous episodes, words are chosen intentionally within transactional analysis, in particular by Eric Berne. The more you get into transactional analysis, the more you realize words have meaning, both in life, but also in transactional analysis in a particular way. So spontaneity, as I'll actually read from Berne again. I've got another fantastic quote by a fantastic transaction analyst called Ken Mellor, one of my favorites. But Berne says, spontaneity means option. The freedom to choose and express one's feelings from the assortment available and to be liberated from the programming of the past. Wow, that's quite chunky, isn't it?
Wow.
What's your take on all of that, Ali?
Wow. That
Silence.
Was, for a second, I forgot how to be spontaneous there.
That would be your programming, unfortunately, getting in the way.
But that's what triggered me the most, Jason. It's the freedom of from the programs
Yeah.
that are instilled, be it by parents, be it by society, be it by cultures, by whatever. And the further you go, the further I go,
Mm.
the more I realize that these programs are very strong. They're tied in so powerfully
Mm.
that sometimes it's difficult to even identify them.
Yeah.
They're identified as a part of self rather than something that's extraterrestrial. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. No, they're not out of this world. They're fully integrated into our world, and
Yeah.
they're going on in the background. That's what the more you get into transaction analysis, you'll discover, and the more in our podcast we'll get into later on into the juicy theory. But yeah, it's these programs that are running in the background like early software or early coding. And when
Mm,
Burns talking about spontaneity in particular, he's talking about being the choice to be free from that more often, if you will, to get
mm.
spontaneity into your life more often through choosing and expressing your feelings, and I would say thoughts, in how you want to express them.
There's also a great connection with the choice part with our previous episode with capacity for intimacy. I feel
Mhm.
that there's also this choice element that you choose to be intimate, you choose to be open, you choose to be authentic with another person and reciprocate that feeling to them as well.
Yep, I totally agree. And again, I think he chose that intentionally. I mean, like
Mm,
it's only a kind of one word, choice, but it is so powerful that
true.
we have the ability to influence what's going on, regardless of our programming, if that makes sense. So we all have
Mm,
this early software programming, but we're not defined by it. So that we do have the capacity to choose how we want
mm.
to be now, or how we want to be more of something as we track on.
So from that quote, what I'm taking away a few. I like to take away like a few keywords from that quote and see if I've covered them all. Well, I
Okay.
won't be able to cover them all, but some of them. It's choice, the latter thing we talked about. It's options. It's expression of feelings, and it's independence from programs of the past.
Bingo. Bingo.
Ooh.
And again, that encapsulates a huge amount of transaction analysis theory that, when you put it all together, it leads towards one of the things we talked about earlier in an earlier episode, which is physis, this life energy. So sometimes
Mm,
the programming unconsciously can get in the way of allowing that out. So Byrne here is saying that when we tackle some of that programming and we make choices, we're allowed to express this energy more often through feelings and
mm.
thoughts and connection, like you were saying, Ollie.
Wow. It's fun. So this is what one of the definitions you said that you
Yeah.
have a few quotes.
Do you want to hear the next one, which I think
Yes,
is,
please.
when I read it, I thought, yes, gosh, man, I hadn't read this in a very long time. And when I pulled it out, I thought, yeah, okay, this is still so alive now. And it's probably written about 30 years ago, if not. It's by Ken Meller. It's a little bit long, right? So
Okay.
take your time. So Ken says, we are living organisms who thrive on action, movement, and expressiveness. He says that we need to act in accord with the life energy coursing or trickling through us if we are to experience our full potency and power. Right? So expressiveness, which he connects to spontaneity, expressiveness promotes our connection to the source of that life energy, which is physis. So the more we can connect to the life energy, the more we can freely allow it to flow through
Mm,
spontaneity, the more he would say we are tapping into our potency, our strength, our power, our sense of self and ability and what's achievable. So I find Ken's one really it's got a punch behind it, in terms of what you would think spontaneity is just kind of a nice it's kind of a nice word. That wouldn't it be nice if it was more spontaneity? Ken saying, oh no, goodness gracious, this is powerful stuff that you can get into your life a bit more, both personally and professionally.
it does. what I love about this quote is that it connects back to physis.
That's right. That's
Love
what
it.
I like to, yeah.
And it's I like the expressiveness, the connection between expressiveness and the potency of power. Is that the correct?
Yeah,
Did I hear
so
that
he
correctly?
calls it potency and power.
And power. There you
Yeah.
go.
So potency in it's another word that's used a lot in transaction analysis, is like strength,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's your inner strength coming out through expression, and he says that can be powerful when we do it more often.
Wow. I mean, it's with a lot of other episodes that we have, and I'm sure that we're gonna have in the future. Um, it's amazing how these spontaneity, when I think of it, it reminds me of a child. It reminds me of, someone just having fun, without any motive, just kind of in the flow fun, right? But then when you unpack it, even via these two quotes, it's so much more than just fun. It's more around expressing yourself. It's expressing feelings.
Mm.
It's about your own internal life power, which is physis, which we talked about, tapping into that physis. Uh, I specifically like the second quote with starting, "We're all living organisms. Let's remember biology.
Yeah,
We're we're all humans, human beings."
that's right. But I
So
mean,
lit.
you're quite right though, Ollie, because when I think of spontaneity, I do straight away go to what it felt like when I was younger as a child,
Mm,
and I think Eric Byrne would agree too. He would be saying that we were more spontaneous when we were kids, which meant we expressed our feelings more freely. Is what that
right.
kind of. It doesn't mean we just had great fun. Now we did, but fun was part of that. That was the happiness side. But also when we were sad, we'd express our sadness. When we were angry, we'd show our anger. So he would say that yes, we were kind of clearer when we were younger, that we didn't have this programming getting in the way and hampering our ability to
Mm,
express our feelings and our thoughts, sometimes through action. Do you know what I mean?
right.
I mean, if you think about, the happiness and freedom is, running around in a playground. I mean, that's just it coming out. The fight is kind of going, run, run, run. Isn't this great fun? Chase me. So, and again, with our programming, we lose a lot of that when we get older.
Mm,
That's what we're really talking to here is how we can learn to suppress or repress that
right.
spontaneity, and that's not great for us. And as a
Mm-mm.
clinician, I'd say, a lot of people that I see are struggling in this area now because they're working so hard. They're taking things so very seriously. There's this heavy weight of responsibility that's come on them, so they find it more difficult to be spontaneous,
Mm,
like they were when they were much younger, before they had all these responsibilities.
wow. It also sounds like the older we become, so the more we kind of go away from the initial programming, but it still influences us, the more spontaneity maybe even has to become intentional.
Oh
Is that
yeah.
sometimes we have to intentionally give ourselves permission, space, to be spontaneous, to do wild things just because it's fun, not
Absolutely.
not to get anything out of it specifically. Just, I'm having fun. That's it. That's all I want.
Yeah, it sounds ironic that you have to be intentional to be spontaneous, but it's true, because we actually have to fight the programming that's getting in the way of us being spontaneous. So you're kind of rewiring a little bit the more you practice
Mm,
spontaneity, the more. And again, let's not just see it as being like child fun. That is a big part of it, but it's
yeah.
also feelings. It's allowing ourselves to spread to connect and express our feelings, um, with all of its kind of parts. I mean, that it's all
Beautiful.
part of us, through expressing. But what about, like, if you're thinking about it, because we're talking in a way, we're talking about it through life.
Yeah.
What about in work, Ollie? Would you see any examples here?
So actually, before this session, before our episode, I was thinking about it, and you don't think spontaneity, just as with intimacy, you don't think spontaneity in the workplace. It's not the first thing that comes to mind,
Mm.
right? You think professionalism, you think structure, you think something, uh, all these kind of big words. Spontaneity is not, it's not one of them. Creativity, maybe, and
Yeah, okay.
creativity may be used, but not spontaneity in this sense. However, I was thinking, what value does spontaneity bring to the workspace? And there are, again, 3, 4 different areas where it could. It's problem solving, so it allows for creative problem solving.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's beneficial to teamwork. It creates a different aura, so it helps breaking the ice. It helps building trust. It creates a more low-key communication, kind of more human interaction, I'd say. Um, Building on top of that, like, it improves morale. So there's a bit more fun, a bit more excitement. There's reduced stress, and I think I see that a lot when in tense meetings, when there's red numbers and everyone's kind of stressed, and you can ease the tension just by even venting in a fun way, right? That being spontaneous, professionally spontaneous. And for example, for those who are working with customers, if they do, or you could argue that everyone is a customer who you work with, it's about creating that unique experience, because they can experience you as a spontaneous person, as in not a spontaneous person, but as an authentic person,
Yeah.
rather,
Yeah.
right? So they can experience you, and you can provide that unique customer experience, even though it might be from a company's behalf, but it's you providing that service. So those are the things that came to mind. Well, how do they resonate with you, Jason?
Yeah. I mean, especially that last one, around authenticity. We're going to talk about that, maybe even in the next podcast. I'm not too sure, but TA would TA uses a phrase called autonomy, and that roughly translates as authenticity as well, with a few other things connected to it.
Right.
And what sits behind that is the more we are able to be intimate, as we were talking about in the last podcast, the more we're able to be spontaneous, the more we're being authentic, right? That we're tapping into all parts of ourselves and kind of not getting in the way. And I absolutely agree. I think this helps with relationships across the board, whether it's friends and family, or colleagues, or peers, or managers, or clients, customers. I think it absolutely is really important. I love where you first went, because where you first went was creativity. And I think a lot of spontaneity taps into that creative side. And one of the ways it does, and this is what we had in abundance when we were kids, is also curiosity.
Beautiful.
So when we're more spontaneous, we're a little bit more curious about stuff, you know, and then that allows us to explore further and get into things that avoids us talking ourselves out of it. It's the old programming that talks us out of it. That makes sense. And the spontaneity is us being curious. No, go, just do it. Just see what happens. Come on, give it a go. Makes sense?
It does make a lot of sense. Even when we were talking about spontaneity before being it being intentional, one thing that came to mind was one of my favorite bands. I was listening to their interview, a band called, it's a progressive rock band called Tool. And their headliner, so their lead singer, sorry, not their headliner, their lead singer, he said, yeah, well, I sit down every day and write lyrics for the songs. And some days I don't write anything, but it's the intentionality of it that every day I sit down and be creative, that helps me in the end get to a place where I'm, where I finished a song and when it's complete. So and that was surprising to me, because I always thought of creativity as being very spontaneous, as in you can't really plan it. And then there's this person that I look up to from a musical perspective, and they're saying, no, you can plan it. It's just you have to be very consistent.
Yeah, the intentionality. I'm totally with you there, because that's kind of what we were talking about a moment ago around sometimes to break the cycle of not being spontaneous, we actually have to put ourselves in the way of spontaneity. So, okay, I'm going to go into town this weekend, for example, and I'm just going to be really, really spontaneous and go and do stuff that I wouldn't probably normally do. Maybe go to a museum or an art gallery or whatever, and just see where that leads me. So I might find an artist I really like, and then, go to the bookstore and buy some books on him or her. You know what I mean? So if I intentionally put myself there with the idea of just allow yourself to go with it, the physis will start to bring you to places that you wouldn't have intentionally or normally gone on, on a normal weekend. So I think we do actually need more of this intentionally in our lives to reap the benefits. I remember, and sometimes even just thinking about it can allow a little bit of the freedom that Eric Byrne is talking about. I remember I did a workshop on stress with an organization, and they were really, really stressed out. And I said, guys, you need to get a bit more fun into your daily routine. You're going through a very pressurized time. Absolutely. I said, what could that look like in the workplace? So we brainstormed it, and I said, well, when was the last time you chased each other? So I said, what would happen if you went back to your desk and started chasing each other to see what happens? You know what I mean? And see people's reactions. If you had a game of chase. Now, of course, we all roared laughing, and and somebody came in and said, "Oh, health and safety." So there's a responsibility. I get it, but did we have fun thinking about it? Thinking about what the people's faces if you started chasing each other around the office, and it's that kind of spontaneous, fun imagination that even thinking about it helps kind of release physis. But without a doubt, if you actually go and do it, what I was talking about there is, if we go to the museum or whatever, like put yourself there and see what happens, because you'll be a little bit like you were when you were younger, curious, and just go with it and see what happens. Yeah.
Wow. And again, it's the phrase that we came up with on the physis episode is where it's where fear doesn't stop curiosity, right? It's there. It's around that curiosity, that energy piece going forward. Wow. This is really, really powerful.
Yeah. Do you know what? And there could be an invitation here, Ollie, to the listeners. Hey, take a leaf out of our book from this episode. Go and do something spontaneous this weekend or this week or whenever, later on today. Plan some spontaneity just to see what that feels like. If you're curious about something, don't talk yourself out of it. Go and try it and just see what happens.
And if I'll even go a step further, share that in the comments so that others can learn. I think I learned a lot of from other people being spontaneous. Like if you would have said, I went to this museum, oh, I want that too.
Yeah.
So let's share this spontaneity with everyone. And how do you feel we've progressed? Have we covered everything we wanted to cover today on spontaneity?
Yeah, I think we've done a good job. I think to bring it to life, right? And I think that the heart of it really is to bring it to life. So we've explored some of the understandings of the word from a TA perspective, but I think all of us know kind of intuitively that when you tap into this spontaneity, this energy, it feels good and brings you to good places. And that is also not just the fun stuff, it's the expressing your feelings. Don't push them away. Get to know them a bit more and express them in an okay way, and then see what happens. So I think I've done a good job. What do you think, Ollie?
I think it was there's so many thoughts. The few of them that I really like is that this spontaneity allows you to disconnect from the programs of the past. I like that it's about expression. I like that it's about curiousness. I like that it's about life power, about that physis, about tapping into that physis. I love it. And we'll talk about this in the later episodes around free child, but that's the energy I love, and it kind of sounds like that type of energy. With that, dear listeners, what we want to say is thank you for listening up to this point. I hope you'd had a not fairly spontaneous, but maybe a spontaneous episode with us. You've enjoyed this. Please like the podcast if you did like it. Subscribe to this channel. If you have any questions, write them down in the comments below and we'll happily answer them. And from all our hearts, we hope that you stay okay
every day.
every day. See ya.